Inflation's getting out of control. The term, the currency reset, has been one that was popularized maybe 12, 18 months ago. And today's guest last year gave an amazing interview here on the channel about the currency reset. And many of the things that he predicted are unfolding in real time here today. So we're going to be unpacking all of that, what this means, and what you can do about it. My guest is named Mark Gonzales. He's one of my dear friends, and he is actually starting a fantastic new YouTube channel coming here soon to break down everything that's happening in the global financial system, making sense of it, what you can do about it. One of the smartest and most intelligent guys that I've had the pleasure to get to know. So I'm going to link his YouTube channel that'll be coming out soon right there down below so you can get a jump on it and subscribe. So I'll link it right there down below. Some of you may remember Mark from our previous episodes. We'll link to his website right there down below. Like button, subscribe, bell notification, all that fun stuff. And thanks to our sponsor, Vizsla Silver, one of our favorite silver and gold mining stocks. So thank you, Vizsla Silver. And Mark, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Jake. Thanks for having me on. Always a pleasure.
Okay. How do you describe the insanity of the world in the mirage of our secure financial system decaying at record pace right before our eyes right now?
Well, one, clown world is happening at record pace, unfolding. Negative composition is going. If people think that there's any way back to normality of what we're being told will happen, that's just absolutely not the case. Every day you're amazed with the decay of the financial system, your cost of groceries, goods, and services going up. And I hear it all day long in the store. I feel it myself. I know you do too. Or even on a political spectrum of what is told to be real, what's not. We're in bad shape. I mean, let's just break it down and call it what it is. Tough spot. I personally, as you know, believe in metal. I think that's one of the saving graces to bring us out of this on an individual standpoint, because your cost of goods and services are going up, and that's just really not going to change. It's pretty easy to answer. It's a shit show. I don't know. Would you agree?
I wouldn't disagree with you. I was doing this thing that I kind of made for myself. I call it my inflation calculator. So I was just tabulating if you took the government's rate of inflation, 7.5%, and then I compounded it over 5 years, and I just took an even number. Like, let's just say, for the sake of even numbers, you made $10,000 in a year. So I'm doing the math, substituting $10,000 times their said rate of inflation over 5 years, and then taking out my income taxes. And it's quite interesting to see those types of numbers. Now, you've been talking about this for a long time, long before I started this channel. You and I have been discussing this, and you've dubbed this the currency reset. And I want to know, do you still believe we're in the age of the great currency reset? And if so, what does it mean right now?
I do believe it. What it means is essentially, as I said before in a previous interview, and I was telling you years back, is there's a life term to any currency based on its creation factor of debt creating the currency and interest remains. So mathematically, there comes a point where it simply ends and the dollar is exhausted. Now they can keep this going with the Fed pumping trillions of dollars into the market, covering margin calls, essentially what they're doing. But eventually that has to stop. There has to be a revaluation to eliminate the debt on the balance sheet and push forward the bankruptcy discharge onto the citizens of any country or the world, at that matter, because we, in fact, are the implied borrowers. So that is still happening. In fact, just after the Fed meeting here recently, I think I'm losing track of time. It was like a week and a half ago. similar around that time, you had a piece that came out from the Fed on the website talk about the CBDC coin or CBDC currency, whatever you want to call it. They're moving forward with this. That essentially is moving to a new monetary system in a digital fashion. And anytime civilization goes to a new monetary system, is essentially it's a debasement. You can look back at the Roman Empire, debasing coins, melting them down, putting them back in circulation at a lesser value. You can look at coming out of the Depression, which there was actually two depressions, one in 2021 and then a greater one in 29. You don't hear about the first one because the second one was larger. That squeezed the market intentionally to bring us off the gold standard. You had a revaluation of gold, new system. 71 came off the backing of international exchange to gold to dollar. Inflation rose, gold and silver jumped up, new system. It's never to our benefit. So yes, it is in play. It's just a matter of when. The language coming from those in charge is roughly 2025. That's 3 years away. Could it be 5? It could be. Could it be 2? Yes. It just depends on how long the system can actually withstand what is happening before it has to be repriced. But there definitely is a scramble for anybody who's paying attention to this. Whether you are or not, your gut feel is something's wrong, right? So on the note of 7.5 for inflation, you know that's not the case. And interesting, you said that you did that on a $10,000 basis. So did you do just 7.5 every year on 10,000, or did you like extrapolate that growth from whenever to add to 7.5?
No, I just did, and I didn't use 10,000. I used my actual income figures, but I just said 10,000 for just super easy math. So it's just a really straightforward math equation. But yeah, what I did is just over just a 5-year period, like starting today, let's say, or we'll just use the average American income, $50,000 per household, over 5 years of just their stated rate of inflation. And then also taking out, I did just 40% for taxes, state, federal, and then the inflation rate. And it's mind blowing how little purchasing power is left. And so it's quite a wild situation. But you were talking about, you said the great currency reset is happening. It's just a matter of when, but I want to bring you back to the what. So if you're hypothesizing about the when, let's focus on the what. So what is the great currency reset? I know we've talked about it before, but what is your understanding or view on it as of right now, given the incredible amount of inflation we're seeing in all types of things? And what is your thesis on it right now? What is the what?
All right, good question. The what is the transfer of wealth from individuals, you, me, everybody else, your neighbor, even businesses, to that of a state government or central bank. They got to refund their coffers, so to speak. So that's the what. How that happens is in an inflationary environment is a couple different ways. One, there's the repricing. We can touch on that in a second. But essentially, the goal is to make your wealth that of theirs to essentially build them back up on the default. A couple different ways. One, the Federal Reserve is a partner of the Treasury, of the U.S. government, much like all central banks are to that government, because it allows them to print without having any set structure of we need to mine X amount of gold or have something tangible backing the increase of the currency system.
We have to back it to the number of stocks Nancy Pelosi trades. Maybe that's the first currency reset.
Possibly, I mean, reset them really. I mean, let's take it from them, but that never happens. We know that doesn't happen. It's always put on the citizen. So in that transfer of wealth, that as time goes on, currency devalues. So it's going to take less currency to pay set amount of bills. Inflation can work for you if you actually have something valued on a personal level to meet that devaluation or keep you solvent, right? Otherwise, you're in the cycle of chasing your tail. So, the thesis or Klaus Schwab of World Economic Forum saying you'll own nothing to be happy. That happens a couple of different ways: through the reprice, default of the currency in the bankruptcy, or inflation. So let's say your iPhone now, and I'm actually pricing a new one for our channel, and they're going for about $1,100 for a new one. What happens when that phone becomes $3,000 and yours breaks? You can't get it. You're going to have to get the Obama phone, so to speak, or something in similar comparison to actually have communication, and that's going to be given to you at a cost. So that's one aspect of it. The second is understanding simply the monetary structure of notes, treasury notes, mortgage notes, the note for loan of a credit card, of a car note. A note is a debt instrument, and that debt instrument creates a bank note. So you borrow $1, again, to reiterate, and sometimes you got to hash on this a little bit more over and over for people to understand it. You borrow $1 to make $1, or a euro, or a yen, or a pound, it doesn't matter. But you owe $1.30, $1.50, whatever. The interest above and beyond what is created, it's never made, but it's still owed. So it's like the world owes X, the world has Y, doesn't work. You must expand a monetary system, because it is essentially a Ponzi scheme. You must expand that year over year at least the previous year's principal and interest, and that's in a baseline of zero. Forget the illusionary fact of growth or prosperity. That is devaluing the currency and is putting the nation further and further and further in debt. How a government gets out of this, how a central bank or bank gets out of this, is they simply adjust a debt end of that currency, right? It's all zeros and decimals. They add or subtract zeros, they move decimals, and that will revalue what it actually made. And that's simply what I think is coming. I don't know when, but I would bet anything on it that's going to happen. It'll probably be called something else, and most people won't understand, but you'll go to bed and $1 values $1 and it buys whatever $1 buys. And then you're going to go to this new system of CBDC, and maybe it takes 10 CBDC to buy what the previous one did. So essentially you're shouldering a 10 times markup in goods and services, yet since they're essentially the yin and yang of everything, it's only going to take 1 unit or $1 to discharge 10 for the Treasury or the Federal Reserve. It's essentially a do-over. And then life goes on. Anything derived of credit simply has to find a lower price during this process, and that kind of rinses out everybody that's in these markets at higher levels. And then you move forward. But if you're not aware of this, or maybe how to protect yourself, then you're going to be left in the dirt.
So that's what you mean by a repricing when you said part of the great currency reset is a repricing. That's what a repricing is.
Yeah. Mexico did it, and I referred to this before. They did it about 26 years ago. In fact, Agustin Carstens, who's the general manager or the top dog of the world for the Bank of International Settlements, he actually worked for the Central Bank of Mexico
when they did the repricing.
Yeah, he was part of that.
So give us an idea what happened then. What is it?
These people know. I mean, they know what they do. It's a business model.
Why is it a business? Explain the business model.
Okay, so
just so I can understand what repricing means a little more.
Well, the business model is if you're a business, public or private, and you have shares to recapitalize yourself, you can reprice them. You can devalue the shares. And it's simply add
So they're
more.
basically
So
doing a share split, but with currency.
pretty much. Pretty
Interesting.
much. That's kind of how that works. And it's interesting. I mean, there's nothing new under the sun. There's an counteraction to really every action. So what happened in Mexico is they incurred a tremendous amount of debt. Mexico did not price the world, so they couldn't just keep doing what we're doing. And they went to bed, and a peso, the day they went to bed, bought whatever, a smart water. And they woke up, and it took relatively 10 pesos to buy the same smart water. But the Central Bank of Mexico then took its balance sheet, and I forget what the balance sheet actual number was, but they took that down by a factor of 10 times. So it only took 1 peso to satisfy 10 in debt. And it's just it's a restart. That's it. Businesses do it. Anybody that trades stocks, ETFs or the like, if you haven't incurred something like this in your portfolio, chances are you probably will. A lot of people that are listening have. So it's really not uncommon. It's allowed to happen. It's a process of recapitalization, and the same thing's going to happen to the currency because the currency essentially is debt. It's an obligation.
Now, I know you said when, and when you say when, you're referring to just looking at their IMF and whatever white papers. But let's talk about when from a systematic perspective. So 40% of all US dollars were printed or counterfeited into existence since the shutdowns began. So how much more money can and will be created before the system falls apart?
Oh, that's something God only knows. I wish I could say this is the time it's going to actually happen. As we know, things can go on a lot longer than what you anticipate. I would say we're at a very, very close breaking point because you're getting more information coming out now about central bank digital currencies. You've had a lot of hype about Fed rate hikes. They're talking about minutes came out 50 basis points next month. Maybe they do it, maybe they don't. But we're at the end of this cycle. It's just how long is the perception going to last? Again, going back to the velocity of money I did on the inflation aspect with you is when people start changing their spending habits, it's really game over because a currency then becomes a hot potato. I don't want it. I don't want it. So a 50-point basis hike is not going to do squat. It really won't. You got to get rates above the inflation rate of 7.5, which is adjusted lower. Real inflation, depending on who you listen to and reversing imputations, you're looking top teens to 20. And that's a real life situation. So you got negative real rates. You got to raise the rate to match that or go above just to have a positive rate. There's no way in hell it's going to happen. I wish I could answer that. I really do. We're on borrowed time, though, and anybody that's looking through a clear lens is going to realize that. So the point being is, as opposed to putting a timeline on something that you know is inevitable, viewers need to at least see this for what it is and prepare while there's the option to prepare. Because eventually, if you look at the world around you and what can happen, I mean, look at what's going on in Canada. You have a pullback of money that was given to certain entities, and now you have clawbacks through to martial law to be able to take what is yours. So when governments really, really, really go after you and try to take what's yours, you know they're desperate. So I would say to that note, I don't know the time. The people that are saying this are saying 2025. So that's what I'm gauging it on. Could the system fall under its own weight before that? Absolutely, it could. Could the Fed raise rates a point, and just collapse everything? They could. They pulled back lending in 29 to cause the Great Depression, squeeze the market, create supply shortages to make everybody beg for help, and then removed us off the the gold standard of currency. So I would say just be early as opposed to late, because at some point your option to act is made for you.
So for everyone listening to, Mark's got a YouTube channel coming out soon, so I'll link it right there in the comments and description. One of the things that's an interesting theme to watch, the theme that to leave the financial system has obviously been discussed at length in similar conversations, but the theme certainly becomes more relevant when you see bank freezes and such like that. And then you can see how, I've gotten in a bit of trouble on this channel, so I'll watch what I say. But you can see how a central bank digital currency fits in to the freezing agenda and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess for the repricing and for finishing of, I think that there's two great resets. First of all, I think that there's a Davos crowd great reset, and then there's a great reset of like a populist movement or individuals that are exiting the system, and you're seeing this awakening, and it's kind of like two forces. But if we talk about the central controllers reset, I guess what you're saying, if I'm hearing you right, is the great currency reset isn't complete until a central bank digital currency is ready, because that's how they officially reprice the system.
Potentially. I mean, you're going from one unit of measure, physical banknotes, to a reprice into a digital system that comes at satisfying some sort of default on the bank. I mean, it could happen sooner. I mean, it really could, meaning that you don't have to get to 100% removal of banknotes on a central bank system before a reprice happens. It could happen in 3 years. It could happen in 5. It could happen in 2. It's going to happen when they make it happen. But that's the agenda: is going from one structure to another is going to be paying for the default. Unfortunately, citizens always pay for that. And interesting, you were talking about currency base up 40%. Yeah. Look at gas, look at used cars, look at all of this stuff, and maybe they call it the chip shortages, but everything's in shortage. Used cars and gas on a national basis, that's up 40%. So
yeah, but did you know that it's Jen Psaki and Elizabeth Warren said it's just because of the meat processors and the kale growers, because they're greedy. Did you know that? That's why we're seeing
this. I know that's BS. They're going to tell you anything they want to say, because they can't come out with the truth. That is why you have, I don't know how far to go with this stuff, but I mean, that's why you have limitations of what you can or cannot say, right? We're rewriting the language, or rewriting the history books, and you got a generation that's coming up that doesn't have a clue. And most people of a younger generation that have been in the markets and trading, and you and I've been doing it for a while, very few people anymore understand anything but a 0 to a quarter or low interest rate policy to keep the engine going. It's not money for nothing all the time. There is a price to pay. History is very clear about this, and it's about to remind us at some point. Unfortunately, a lot of people are going to be hurt, but for those who are prepared, you're going to be able to capitalize on this, because you have really a purging of the system that you can go in and buy. You just have to keep yourself solvent and make sure you have enough to carry you through. Again, that's where precious metals come in. Precious metals have always risen to meet the devalued currency. There's a reason central banks, governments still have it on their balance sheet. Even Jim Records, I really like that guy. Gold and silver, it can back a currency. It's just at what price? So either that happens organically or it happens systematically. We saw 2 examples of that: organically in 70 through 1980, And it would have gone higher if the margin or capitalization to control a traded contract was not risen to force selling or systematically taking it from 20 to 35 in 33. Both examples are there. So this is historically accurate. One of the two is going to play out, maybe both. But as far as, again, when this downturn happens in markets, talking again about the reverse split, you have a leverage basis in today's market in some debt markets. I mean, it could be 50 to 100%. It really can. We haven't learned anything because the system's set up to create currency out of debt, and you owe the interest that was never made. So it's a Ponzi. We didn't learn anything because you can't learn anything. It's a feature. So if you have a leveraged market globally in most assets of, let's say, at least 50 times, synthetic and derivative. Synthetic is fake, derivative derived to something not real. That leaves you with what, a basis of like 10% actual? What happens if everybody hits the exit at one time? There's not enough stuff to sell to generate a return. So you're going to probably see, in my opinion, some sort of gating of limitation of exits out of markets when it happened, or reverse split of equities or shares alike, even ETFs, to recapitalize and block the exit. And we're starting to see this with what is happening in other parts of the world with something you feel is yours, and then all of a sudden, guess what? It's mine. So this can happen, and this is a wake-up call, right? People need to pay attention to what's happening. I mean, the days of just sitting on your ass and thinking like you can get by and put it off till tomorrow, hey, good luck. That's done. Step up, make your list of objectives. And it's not just a monetary system. It's what type of person do you want to be? Look at your family, look at what you got to do to provide, look at what you got to do for yourself. Take inventory and stock of everybody in your life and how you relate to them and what they relate to you. And above all, with everything going on, I mean, really take focus on your health, because without that, you have nothing. It's interesting. I was at an event in Michigan, a guy I met at Rapid City Red Pill, and he had an event in Merlette outside of Brown City. I was just there. I spoke there. Real intimate thing. And there was a guy that did finance funding on corporate levels, a funding hedge fund manager. I spoke. And then there was a guy there, because it all ties together. And he was talking, he has like organic farms and he ships. I wish he could ship here, but he can't. And it's just real interesting how all this stuff ties together. A lot of people think it's the financial health. It's everything. And now's the time to really take stock in where your heart's at. What if tomorrow doesn't come?
As you know, I live in Utah and strong LDS community here. And one of the interesting things that I didn't know is the LDS community, it's quite a prepping community. Mm-hmm. They actually have a guidebook, like a prepping guidebook. So as we conclude here, give me how do you prepare? What's your guidebook that we can, leave for listener?
Well, it's going to vary depending on where you're at. But as far as me personally, as far as God's money, the money you can't counterfeit, the money you can't print, gold and silver, I recommend everybody have 30% of your wealth than that, because when you sell something to take advantage of coming decline in markets, you just simply do not get that back. I mean, let's be real. I mean, look how things are in short supply. What you think gold and silver is going to be readily available to you when this stuff happens? So me, I'm above that on a personal level, but you don't put all your eggs in one basket. As far as health, everybody has vices. I'm not going to say you're going to be 100% because that's almost impossible. I mean, we're humans. No one's perfect. But I do routines as far as workout, things I feel are beneficial to me. I try to eat right. I have I have many months of food. If something were to happen, water, access to it, because it's you're going to have to forge through. The whole point is when you have a reset of price, especially going forward with the digital currency, which can be taken from you, limited of what you can spend, in complete control. I mean, Augustine Carson, we talked about this in one of the last interviews. It was in July. He mentioned, we don't know where the $100 bill or 1,000 peso. We want control of our liability. Aha, it's a debt to them, and they can convert it to stock. So nothing's yours really when it comes to this financial market. So you need to just make sure you take personal inventory, and it's going to be different for everybody. This is what I've done in just kind of a rough nutshell. Because the last thing you want is to be a day late and dollar short of something you may need. One, you disservice yourself and your family and those you care about, but you can't be a blessing to anybody unless you're a blessing to yourself first. And if you miss the slightest steps, well, then you're going to have to ask someone for help. And the last people you want to ask for help is a bank or a government. They get you. So that's it. I hope that helps. Did it? Maybe.
Well, what we're all doing here is trying to make sense of everything that's happening. We want to thank you for joining today, Mark. We want to thank you for listening. We're going to link Mark's new coming YouTube channel right there down below, where you can go ahead and check it out. Link right there down below where you can reach out to Mark directly as well. Make sure you smash the like button on this video, subscribe, bell notification, all that good stuff. Give us a comment right there down below. Let us know what you think of today's episode. And I want to thank you for coming on, Mark.